last time we spoke, you said that you weren't king, you were president. There were only certain things you could do unilaterally. As time goes on, 1,000 deportations on average a day, people are wondering, and our Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds, that's the question everybody asks. Won't you at least consider unilaterally freezing deportations for the parents of deferred action kids?
Yeah. Here's the problem that I have, Jose, and I've said this consistently. My job in the executive branch is supposed to be to carry out the laws that are passed. Congress has said, here's the law when it comes to those who are undocumented, and they allocate a whole bunch of money for enforcement. And what I have been able to do is to make a legal argument that I think is absolutely right, which is that given the resources we have, we can't do everything that Congress has asked us to do. What we can do is then carve out the DREAM Act folks, saying young people who have basically grown up here are Americans that we should welcome. We're not going to have them operate under a cloud, under a shadow. But if we start broadening that, then essentially I would be ignoring the law in a way that I think would be very difficult to defend legally.
What did you, as the head of the Department of Homeland Security, what did you want to do? What was your sense of like, well, this is my mission in terms of immigration?
On immigration, early 2014, there was a confluence of what I would say were three events. One, we were working with the Congress to try to get comprehensive immigration reform passed. Second, we had the spike in migration from Central America in early 2014, spring 2014, early summer 2014. Third, as you will recall, President Obama was being heavily criticized for being the so-called deporter-in-chief.
Coming up on Latino USA, we continue talking about the crisis at the border, family separation, and our conversation gets tense. Secretary Johnson, have you ever thought about apologizing for your role in kind of creating the immigration detention problem, situation, crisis that we have now?
No.
2013 and 2014. In the second part of our interview with Jay Johnson, we talk about the way his administration responded to the crisis. We also talk about his department's policies on deporting undocumented immigrants. Obama's promise was to focus on criminals. But data from ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, shows these deportations targeted immigrants whose only crime was illegal entry into the United States, or cases of fraud, including possessing false immigration documents. We're going to pick up the conversation now. So, with this influx of families and children coming without their parents over the border, you say that your approach was humanitarian. You, in fact, decide to expand family detention. Before 2014, there was only one detention facility that housed families. That was Berks in Pennsylvania. You open up 3 other detention facilities that are aimed at holding families. So why did you decide to do that, and how do you look back on that decision now?
So our response to any situation like this has to have a humanitarian component to it. We should hope to treat others as we would want to be treated ourselves. The other aspect of that is we have sovereign borders. Our borders are not open. There are laws to enforce. When you have Border Patrol infrastructure built to accommodate a population of X, and it ends up being X times 4, the conditions are not going to be optimal. I was surprised to find out that in 2014, we had immigration beds for 34,000 people, only 95 of which were equipped for family units. This was a new demographic, a new phenomenon, because for a very, very long time, the prototypical migrant on the southern border was a single adult from Mexico, usually a male. And the demographic had totally changed. And so we simply could not have a system of catch and release. Some people listening to this may not welcome that information.
I think many people might not like that term, but because
well,
it's like
we cannot have a system of catch and release.
Right. People say, well, they're not animals.
You just can't have a system of catch and release. The message then goes out that essentially our borders are open. Family detention was not popular in a lot of quarters. I was acutely aware of that, and always asking our people, hey, are we doing this the right way? Is there an alternative?
For about 2 weeks, the Border Patrol has refused to allow reporters and cameras into facilities where agents are housing hundreds of immigrant children. But today we finally got a look.
The Border Patrol allowed only one video camera into holding centers in Nogales and in McAllen, Texas. It comes out as Border Patrol faces claims of bad conditions for the children. Not in Your Side's Craig Smith was able to take his own tour of the Nogales complex, and he joins us live from Nogales.
Guy, a large group of reporters was allowed to come into this facility in Nogales, but under strict ground rules as a condition for entry. No cameras, at least no cameras we control directly, no sound recordings of any sort, and no questions. What we saw does track what we saw in pictures taken in secret days before. Kids in chain link holding areas using foil blankets. But now we have context and explanation. Agents say the foil blankets, for instance, reduce the chance of allergic reactions. They say the facility was not set up hastily to cope with a glut of immigrant children. They say it is a facility built about the year 2000 for adult detainees, converted when the need arose to house hundreds of children. There are systems set up for showers and clean clothes every 24 hours, health checks, healthful meals, and opportunities for play. The El Salvador government sent a senior official to check on the children from that country.
Naturally, as a government, we're concerned that the minors are being treated this way. We're not accusing the government of the United States that they're not trying their best efforts, but we can do. It can be more can be done.
No one suggested it's a great situation, but why did Border Patrol wait so long to offer a look to refute claims of abuse? Border Patrol did not answer that question during the tour, so we asked Agent Art Del Cuerto of the Border Patrol Union.
You know what I think? I think a lot of it has to do, and unfortunately I see it all the time as a union representative, you always get the bad news out first, right? They weren't calling the shots, they were coming from D.C. It's up to D.C. That's something that you guys are seriously going to have to ask, people up in D.C.
Now, that union rep says agents caring for the children volunteered for that duty, but he worries that because they are not out there on the front lines, that border protection itself is likely to suffer. We'll hear more on that new at 6. Reporting live from Nogales, Craig Smith, KGUN 9 on.
If you are smuggling a child, then we will prosecute you, and that child may be separated from you as required by law.
Okay, so just how far apart is President Trump's approach to immigration from President Obama's? Obama, after all, took a lot of heat for his policies, particularly after a surge of migrants began coming through the U.S.-Mexico border in 2014. Leon Fresco was a deputy assistant attorney general in the Obama administration.
The Obama administration said, we are being faced with this humanitarian crisis on the southern border where Border Patrol agents and ICE agents who are supposed to have immigration functions are doing things like changing diapers and giving milk and things that they're not operationally trained for. We have to figure out some way to address this.
Fresco handled a number of immigration lawsuits for President Obama's DOJ, and he spoke with Steve Inskeep this week.
Prior to 2014, the history of America was a history of you let the family in together and you give them an immigration proceeding. That was pretty much it.
Meaning that at some point they'll come back to court, or they're supposed to anyway, and
Correct.
find out if they can stay or if they must go.
Correct. That was the history of America.
Okay, but after 2014, the Obama administration said there was a problem. Some of the new arrivals were not showing up in court.
But because there were so many people coming,
Yeah.
you have to have some mechanism. And that mechanism is either detention, so that you make sure they show up to court, or the good faith of the individual who's coming over to show up to court. Those are your choices, essentially.
Well, let's underline a couple of things that I'm learning as you're talking that I think are extremely relevant now. First, the Obama administration was facing the question of how to enforce the law, how
Correct.
to let those stay who deserve to stay, and how to deport those who need to be deported.
That's correct.
So whenever anybody today says President Obama had an open borders policy, that's just a lie.
That is complete falsehood. In fact, President Obama was constantly called the deporter-in-chief, and all you need to do is go on my Twitter feed and see people say, you're the guy who kept trying to deport everybody.
The second thing that you're underlining for us is that even though the unaccompanied minors are the people who made news, and there were thousands of them, there were also families coming across.
Absolutely.
And
At
your
equal
dilemma,
levels.
And your dilemma was, what do you do with the families? What prevented you from just holding the parents and the children together?
So that is what the Obama administration tried to do. They constructed one 2,500 person facility in Karnes, Texas, and another one in Dilley, Texas. And those look like basically Econo Lodge hotels that you cannot leave, that are enclosed. And so the idea was keep people in family detention until their case was decided.
Okay, what's wrong with that?
So the people who in 1986 filed a lawsuit called Flores versus Meese at that time, because Ed Meese was the attorney general.
Wow, long time ago.
Yes, then that case was settled in 1996, and the settlement said that if you have an unaccompanied minor in your custody, you have to let them out. The problem was that settlement agreement did not use the word unaccompanied minor. It used the word minor. But because it only used the word minor, no minor can be held in any custody whatsoever.
Even if they're with their parents,
Correct.
it's still custody.
Correct.
Gotta
Can't
let
do
them
it.
go.
Gotta let them go. And so then, if you want to hold somebody in custody, you have to separate the parents and the children, or you have to let the parents and the children in together to the United States and trust them to appear at their court proceeding. And so this is the conundrum.
The third rail of politics, but which seemed tantalizingly within reach to then candidate Obama. He made this promise to Hispanic voters in 2008.
I cannot guarantee that it's going to be in the first 100 days.
But
what I can guarantee is that we will have in the first year an immigration bill that I strongly support and that I'm promoting.
Now in his second term, President Obama has yet to fulfill that promise.
Immigration reform has taken a lot longer than anybody thought, and now President Obama is in the 5th year of his presidency. It's still not been dealt with. He used his political capital on other things. His ability to convince Congress to do this is vastly diminished.
He did embrace the DREAM Act, a path to citizenship for the children of undocumented parents, but did not promise to protect those parents.
We've got an immigration system that is broken. That's why my top priority has been, let's make sure that we comprehensively reform the whole system. Let's fix the legal immigration system so that we're not pushing people into an illegal process. And let's make sure that we've got secure borders.
Though President Obama still has 3 years in office, some say his political clout to get the job done is waning.
You know, all presidencies in their second term run into a problem where they either become irrelevant or they regain their traction. And I think the president today and over the last few weeks has come to a point where this could either be the end of the relevancy of his presidency in Washington and people have to wait for the next president in 2016, or he can restart this and get his mojo back. But today is another one of those difficult days. One day on its own usually doesn't matter, but it's a combination of days that I think that has affected him. So I think the window is very small on getting this done.
Immigration. Which one can attack the idea of borders most aggressively? Keep in mind, it was only a few months ago that as a group they were telling you there was no crisis at all on the border. In fact, they were saying it was manufactured by the Trump administration. Remember? Watch this.
Folks, the president has manufactured one heck of a political crisis for himself. Donald Trump is manufacturing a national security crisis.
You will hear them say is that this is a manufactured crisis. It's not a national security crisis.
From Nancy Pelosi down to Debbie Wasserman Schultz or anybody else who will give him a dime for this project.
Because
so
it's manufactured.
It's a manufactured crisis for the president to get a political win.
We have a president who will go on TV tonight and lie and lie and lie some more. This is a manufactured crisis.
Shills and liars and dumb people. Joe Lockhart coming out of retirement to lie to you. It's a manufactured crisis. That wasn't true then. It's definitely not true now. 100,000 people estimated to be streaming into this country illegally every month, many from as far away as Africa. The crisis is not manufactured. It's demonstrably real. Even Democrats recognize that now. But now they're saying it's not their fault, of course. They're blaming the president. This week, a man and his daughter drowned trying to cross the Rio Grande River, which creates our southern border. Beto O'Rourke, participating in tonight's debate, tweeted this, quote, "The president is responsible for these deaths." This is the man who said we should have no border barrier whatsoever. The press instantly adopted Beto's view as their own. Watch them repeat his sentiments.
His administration's mix of cruelty and incompetence continues day by day to exacerbate a humanitarian crisis at the border,
resulting in the suffering of children and infants as the president and his administration concoct a toxic brew of political opportunism and operational incompetence.
Children who live there today and tonight should not have to shoulder the political dysfunction and the administration's policies that have created this situation.
What you just saw isn't shading the truth. It's not bending the truth. It's lying right to your face and daring you to disagree. It's the definition of propaganda. Thousands of people cross our border every single day illegally. Why? Because word has gotten out that our immigration laws will not be enforced. It's not the president who decided not to enforce them. He was elected to enforce them. No, it's the Democratic Party, which has staked its entire political future on the dysfunction you're watching right now, on importing a new class of voters to replace the American middle class, which it no longer serves or cares about. It's Democrats who erected sanctuary cities. It's Democrats who halted deportations. It's Democrats who are telling you even today we have to shut down ICE. Not everything about the Democratic Party is bad. Not everything they say is a lie. But when they tell you that it's Trump's fault, that the border's out of control, that is a lie. It is 100% their fault. They created the status quo that is causing deaths suffered by migrants. But don't take it from us. 5 years ago, President Obama admitted that dysfunctional borders lead to suffering. Watch this.
Our message absolutely is don't send your children unaccompanied on trains or through a bunch of smugglers. We don't even know how many of these kids don't make it and may have been waylaid into sex trafficking or killed because they fell off a train. We have no way of tracking that. So that is our direct message to the families in Central America. Do not send your children to the borders. If they do make it, they'll get sent back. More importantly, they may not make it.
Says Barack Obama telling illegal aliens not to come and not to put their children in harm's way trying to sneak in. Can you imagine? He was a Democrat, by the way, in case you don't remember. He held office just 3 years ago. Try saying that today. Anyone who even had those thoughts would be considered a thought criminal. Obama would be too far right-wing to stand on tonight's debate stage. He actually would be scorned by his fellow Republicans, by the way, if he were a Republican. Things have changed a lot.
And the left's latest border manipulation is next. The tragedy of a 7-year-old Guatemalan child who dies in Border Patrol custody has led some to disgusting politics. Well, according to the CPB records, the girl and her father had been in custody for about 8 hours when she started having seizures. Medical personnel fought to save her life but were unable to. And in the aftermath, it was reported that during her trek to the border, she had not eaten or had any water, quote, for several days. Within hours, Democrats knew whom to blame.
This is part of the absolute insensitivity to migrants, to people seeking asylum on the part of this administration. When you take 7-year-olds who you know have been walking across the border, across a desert, you don't check them, you don't take their temperature, it's total disregard, you don't give a damn. That's what this shows.
We don't give a damn? All right. America is extremely generous. We spread humanitarian aid all over the world, especially into these affected areas. But we're not the world's police, and we're not the world's hospital. We are doing what we can in incredibly difficult circumstances created by politicians. Here to respond is Hector Garza, Vice President at Large for the National Border Patrol Council, and Gunther Sanabria. He's an immigration attorney. Hector, take us through, now, what are the normal procedures? And what do the border agents need to do when families cross into the United States? We've had record numbers of family units crossing across our southern border in different sectors because people know they're going to be able to come in and be released after a certain number of days. So what's the procedure?
So first of all, Laura, I want to make it very clear that as agents, we are sick and tired of being blamed for these types of tragedies. The people that should be blamed for these types of tragedies are the drug cartels that are orchestrating these smuggling events. Also, those politicians that are encouraging illegal immigration are to blame for these types of tragedies. Not our agents, not President Trump. Our agents are doing an amazing job to care for these people. Now, we have specialized policies in regards to how we treat juveniles in our custody, unaccompanied minors, and those family units. Every time those people come into our custody, we have professional medical staff that will conduct an evaluation on those juveniles to make sure that they're okay to continue through the process. Now, we feed them, we give them water, we give them blankets, and if they're part of a family unit, they will stay together to make sure that we maintain that family unity.
Well, there's apparently 8 hours, Hector, where, you know, DHS isn't telling anybody, like, what happened to this little girl? What happened to her and her father? We don't know, I guess.
Yeah, and in this specific case, it's still under investigation, but what we do know from CBP is that these people were part of a group of 163 aliens that entered our country illegally. About 50 of those 163 aliens were unaccompanied minors. Now, this is a very remote part of the desert on the U.S.-Mexico border in New Mexico. So you have to put yourself in agents' shoes when they're out there patrolling the border with very limited resources, and all of a sudden they come up on a group of 163 aliens. It's going to be chaos, but our agents are going to try their best. And unfortunately, this father that brought his child with him is also responsible, just like the cartels and just like the politicians.
Gunther, if an American citizen or legal immigrant had withheld food or water from his or her child for several days, took him or her across the country or points unknown, and didn't feed or give water, they would be in jail tonight.
They will be charged with negligence of a child.
Well, why shouldn't this father be charged with negligence?
Because that's not what happened here. These are children running for their lives, and they go.
So the father has no responsibility?
No, the father had the responsibility to protect his child, but then he did up to the point that they turned themselves into border patrol.
Didn't have several days they didn't eat or drink.
Because there was nothing to drink or nothing.
But you're bringing your child into an extremely dangerous situation with cartels, with human traffickers.
To save them, exactly.
Well, it's a hard call, though, for Americans watching this, thinking, blaming these Border Patrol agents who wanted more funding and who've wanted more help from politicians.
We're not blaming the Border Patrol agents. What we're blaming is the system that was created where the Border Patrol agents do not have enough resources to help all these people. This is a child. It's a 7-year-old child who came into the Border Patrol with clear signs of exhaustion, clear signs of not having eaten or drink any water, and it was disregarded. And this happened before. This happened under ICE custody before. Several people have gone there with medical condition and died.
So it's the American people's responsibility, the American taxpayers' responsibility, when a parent decides to cross our border illegally, come into the United States with a child across a very difficult terrain. It's the American taxpayers' responsibility, is it not, to pay for medical care, pay for interpreters, pay for lawyers, pay for a process, pay for housing, because that's what they're doing.
If we are going, as an American organization, a government agency, say, come to me, I'm going to process your problems of immigration, and I'm going to take custody of a 7-year-old child, yes, that government agency is responsible for that child. If they commit something of a negligence or disregard of her medical condition, then yes, they are responsible.
Oh, I think we need to find that out. And I said that I want to know what happened in those intervening 8 hours. At the same time, though, for Nadler to come out and to say, basically, this is on the hands of the Border Patrol agents. And I think a lot of Americans, when they saw the headlines, didn't realize this was part of 163 people That's not one person kind of wandering across the border lost. This is a mass of humanity crossing the border at one time. And you have, what, a dozen? Or Hector, how many agents were there? A dozen trying to deal with this? This is a lot of people at one time.
And that is the point. Not enough people to deal with the problem.
Not enough people, and an orchestrated attempt by individuals in Honduras and Guatemala. And we're learning a lot more about the organizers of these caravans and other groups of people who have a financial incentive to give people false hope that this is going to be a good trek for them.
But it's happening.
Given false hope.
It's happening. We cannot deny it. We cannot close your eyes. And President Trump should allow the government agency to provide enough people to fix the problem and not continue the problem.
But where are the Democrats on this? Hector, you've been asking for more funding. You've been asking for the means to handle this these circumstances and for asylum reform, which has to be put in place so children are not put in this horrific situation where they're dragged across the desert or having to deal with drug cartels or potentially be taken by human traffickers, which happens all too often.
This is happening because, again, these politicians that are failing to act, that they're failing to do their job in Congress, are encouraging illegal immigration. President Trump is supporting the wall. He's supporting infrastructure, manpower. But guess what? Some politicians are not giving us that funding that we need. And that funding that we need is also the wall to make sure that we stop this illegal immigration, that we stop putting these people in these horrific conditions. There's a legal way to do this, and that's going through the port of entry. Let's stop encouraging illegal immigration, and that's my message. Now, how come we're not out there blaming the drug cartels? They're the ones that are orchestrating these smuggling events. They're the ones that dictate where these people are crossing, and they're putting them through these very dangerous situations. As a matter of fact, I think that drug cartels should be designated as terrorist organizations by President Trump.
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of people who are trying to incentivize or give people false hope that this is all going to work out well for them. And the politicians in this country, I have no words for them. I want to know what happened in those 8 hours. I think DHS has to be really forthcoming real fast about the timeline here, more than they've already done. But blaming the Border Patrol, Jerry Nadler, I don't remember any press conferences that Nadler has done for the victims of crime at the hands of cartels or illegal aliens.
Going looking at them, but she's not easily impressed. She was very impressed. So thank you very much.
Mr. President, you seem to be cleaning house at DHS. What would you like to achieve with the new leadership?
Well, I never said I'm cleaning house. I don't know who came up with that expression. We have a lot of great people over there. We have bad laws. We have a judge that just ruled incredibly that he doesn't want people staying in Mexico. Figure that one out. Nobody can believe these decisions we're getting from the Ninth Circuit. It's a disgrace. And so we're fighting the bad laws, the bad things that are coming out of Congress. You have a Democrat Congress that's obstructing. You talk about obstruction, the greatest obstruction anyone's ever seen. All they have to do is spend 20 minutes and they can fix this whole problem. We have the worst laws of any country anywhere in the world, whether it's catch and release or any one of them. I mean, I could sit here and name them, but if you got rid of catch and release, chain migration, visa lottery, you have to fix the asylum situation. It's ridiculous. You have people coming in claiming asylum. They're all reading exactly what the lawyer gives them. They have a piece of paper. Read what that is, and all of a sudden you're entitled to asylum. And some of these people are not people you want in our country. So we are building a lot of wall. It's getting built. Some of you saw that last week when we went. We had a great presentation of a new stretch, but we're building a lot of wall, and we're being very strong on the border. But we're bucking a court system that never, ever rules for us, and we're bucking really bad things with Congress, with the Democrats in Congress not willing to act. They want to have open borders, which means they want to have crime, they want to have drugs pouring into our country. They don't want to act. We have to close up the borders. We're doing it, but we're doing it. I could do it much faster if they would act. So it's a terrible thing. The Democrats in Congress, what they're doing and the obstruction, they don't want to fix it. And we have to fix it. They want open borders. They want to have millions of people pouring into our country. They don't even want to know who they are. These are people coming into our country with criminal records. We have murderers coming in. We have drug lords coming in. We have gangs coming in. And we're stopping them. And if we don't stop them, ICE is throwing them the hell out. We're getting them out. but our job could be so much easier. I think Kevin is going to do a fantastic job. He's acting, but I think he's going to do a fantastic job. And we're not doing anything very big as far as what we need. Homeland security, that's exactly what we want. There's no better term, there's no better name. We want Homeland security, and that's what we're going to get. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Starting the child separations again. Egypt buying more fighter jets from Russia. How do you feel about that?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Obama separated the children, by the way. Just so you understand. President Obama separated the children. Those cages that were shown, I think they were very inappropriate. They were built by President Obama's administration, not by Trump. President Obama had child separation. Take a look. The press knows it. You know it. We all know it. I'm the one that stopped it. President Obama had child separation. Now, I'll tell you something. Once you don't have it, that's why you see many more people coming. They're coming like it's a picnic, because let's go to Disneyland. President Obama separated children. They had child separation. I was the one that changed it. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're not looking to do that now. We're not looking to do that now. Thank you very much. But it brings a lot more people to the border. When you don't do it, it brings a lot more people to the border. We are not looking to do it. But President Obama had the law. We changed the law. And I think the press should accurately report it, but of course they won't. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with the President. It's a great honor to be with you, President.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through merit.
But how will you reunite these kids with their families,
let me just tell you,
Mr. President?
They built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages, and then they had a picture in a certain newspaper, and it was a picture of these horrible cages, and they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them, and then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you have a plan to reunite the kids?
Yes, we're working on it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500-plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up question.
Kristen, they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response to that?
They did it. We changed.
Did not
They built the cages. Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms.